Can everybody hear me? Okay. So hello, everybody. I want to thank you all for joining us this morning, the first day of World Dairy Expo. Woohoo! I'm really excited to present or introduce our presenter, Aubrey Van Lan from Walnutdale Farms. We decided to bring Aubrey here and ask her to share her story of the dairy and highlight the monitoring technology from Allflex Livestock Intelligence and Merck Animal Health. And so I think you're going to be able to learn a lot in this next hour. You know what? You're going to be able to learn a lot in the next hour. And there's going to be some time for us to ask questions to Aubrey. There's going to be some talk starters. So enjoy Aubrey from Walnutdale Farms.
Thank you, Erica. Everybody can hear me? You can hear me good? Okay. Okay, so thanks for joining me this morning as I kind of share a little bit about our dairy farm and just some aspects of that along with the monitoring system. So we'll jump into this here. So we're going to start off with some history and overview of our farm. We'll play a video and I'll kind of talk through that. So our farm is located in Michigan. We're in Wayland, Michigan, which is West Michigan, just south, about 15 minutes of Grand Rapids, if anybody's familiar with that. Our dairy started in 1939 by my great-grandpa August. And then my grandpa took that over from him when he passed away. In the early years, as my dad grew up at Walnutdale, it was a smaller, completely registered herd that focused heavily on embryo transfer work. And as the embryo transfer work became increasingly accessible, our herd began to grow and move away from being solely a registered tie stall herd. So when I was younger, our dairy, when I was growing up, remember it being about 700 cows in a double 10 parallel. And as it continued to grow, it got to 1,100 cows in a 24 stall rotary parlor. Today, I work alongside my dad. I am the fourth generation on the farm. He handles the business and oversees crops and manure. I handle all of the cattle and all of our employees in the day-to-day operations of our farm. I have a brother that's joined us back at the farm who handles all of our accounting and bookwork. And so me and my brother make up the fourth generation on the dairy. Today we milk 1,600 Holsteins and we milk 700 Jerseys on two different operations. We raise all of our own replacements. So from calves on milk all the way through when we bring them home is our replacements on our dairy. Along with that, we also finish out dairy beef. We grow about 3,500 acres of corn and alfalfa that we put up to feed all of our cows and heifers. We do all our own harvesting as well as do custom work for other dairies in our area. Our dairy, as we can see, part of the video right here in 2010 experienced what nobody as a dairyman would ever dream or wish for. Our parlor burned down. So it was July 9 at about 11:30 at night, and I got a phone call saying that our farm was on fire. So you can see from these pictures, it was pretty devastating and everything was gone. But that night, as soon as other farmers heard that our farm was burning, trailers started pulling in the driveway and all our cows by the next day at 11 a.m. were gone. It took us a little while to start rebuilding. As you can see from these pictures, we did. But about October of that year, we started to rebuild. In January, we were blessed with a not very hard winter. And so we started and we just took off and everything lined up and people rallied around us and we installed a 50 stall rotary. And at that time, it was very much whatever we can put together, that's what we're going to put up. So very minimal technology, no automatic takeoffs. And January of 2021, we moved our cows home and started milking again. And that was a pretty amazing feeling to have our girls back. While the cows were gone, My job shifted into something that I didn't really know how to do. My time was spent going to other dairies and looking at my cows, checking on them, but yet I couldn't do a whole lot for them. But every place that had them did the best they could taking care of them. And it was just a blessing that within 7 other dairies, I believe, housed them, the farthest being 2 hours away, that they had the space for 1,100 cattle that night. Because we all know the parlor's the heart of your dairy, and without that, there's not much you can do. And it was also really cool to see all the businesses that supported us through that, knowing that, you know, without dairies, cows on the farm to milk, we had no income, but we had to get going back again. So that was amazing to see the support from our community in that as well. And so now what you see here is how our dairy looks today. And we're just thankful that, you know, we are here in milking again. So like I said, once the cows came back from the dairy or from the other dairies, it took us quite a few years to kind of get our cattle back to where they were. When you don't have your own cows, they're not getting bred how you would do it. They're not getting other things done the way that you manage. So when we brought our cows home after the fire, we spent quite a few years getting ourselves back in a spot just because of the financial stress of not having our operation going, and also to get our cattle back to how we took care of them. So, so we're just going to hear a little bit from, I believe this is my dad.
I mean, I just kind of started as a kid growing up on the farm and didn't know no different. We just started farming, went into the next generation. So it's not easy work, it's stressful, it's every day, but it grows on you and it gets in your blood. So. Yeah, Aubrey was the first to come back after 2 years and said, I want to come back to the farm. So she went to Michigan State for a couple years and then kind of took over the animals and the help. At that time, I was accounting, taking care of the people, everything. So she kind of put a big relief on the animal milking and help part of it. So, and then when Austin came into it, then it really started to gel together. And now I'm kind of just stepping back, watching them take off and run with it. So they're doing a really, really good job. I'm proud of them. I mean, after the fire, we decided to rebuild again, and we just tried to build more efficiencies in here as far as cooling milk. And yeah, I mean, they know computers, and I really ain't that good with them. So when they came in, it really took off on that side of it. Being dairy, it's got to be in your blood. You've got to have a passion for it, and Aubrey has it. So.
So we'll stop here just for a few minutes here and take any questions about that portion that we covered, if anybody has them. So, you know, it was interesting because we brought cows to a couple different dairies that had parallel parlors, and coming to our dairy was a rotary in the first place. Transitioning them back home, I honestly feel like it went like they never left, and they just remembered exactly what they were doing, because we actually took a cow home from a dairy that wasn't our cow, and she would not go on our parlor. I'm like, what's your deal? Like, did you forget? And I looked at her and I said, oh, it's because you're not mine. And so I just feel like the transition, bringing them home, went so well. It's like they never missed a beat and they remembered. Meanwhile, while the cows were on another dairy, it was a parallel. They could not get our cows to make the turn and ended up always milking our cows like it was a herringbone parlor. So they were like, we have to do what we have to do. That's fine. But once we kind of got going again in January, we just spent a lot of time. I don't know exactly kind of our cull rate at the time, but we had a lot of cows that just were not pregnant, that had no milk. So it was really diving through our herd and seeing, okay, what do we need to get rid of that doesn't make sense for us to keep, right? That we would have been getting rid of all along. Just hard to do when they're at 7 different dairies and they're not our dairy to kind of go through our cows. So that's why, it took us a couple years really to get everything back to the way our cows had been handled before and with pregnancy and stuff like that. So, the first next year was pretty stressful and, didn't really go how it had hoped, but they were home, so that was good. Any other questions? Okay. There'll be time for questions at the end too. So we did look at, we went to other dairies. We looked at, do we put in a parallel? Do we put in, do we do something like that? We knew we needed bigger than a 24 stall. We had intentions of getting bigger in our 24 stall. I can run the 50 stall that we have now with the same amount of people as I ran the 24 stall, so it was just more efficient to milk more cows on. But because we have the mixed herd, at the time we were leasing a dairy where we milked 500 jerseys, and they all start out at our main facility. So because we have that mixed breed, we still felt like the rotary parlor best equipped, a Holstein standing next to a Jersey, and we didn't have to worry on a parallel and all that kind of stuff. And still, hands down, the rotary is my favorite. You go up in the middle and you look at these cows and they're standing there chewing their cud, they're relaxed. I just kind of feel like they get to do what they want. They come in, they leave, they maybe take a few minutes to leave, and it's the parlor that is kind of just what we prefer. So that's why we went back that way. Okay, so we'll move into talking about how we care for our animals, our cows from birth to milking. So like we've been saying, we milk, this is our main dairy. We have a 50 stall rotary. All our cows are milked 3 times a day here. We do not have any automatic takeoffs, milk meters, anything. It's all manual detach. After the fire, we plan to add them, but things have been going really well without them. Our somatic cell were in the low hundreds, which was better than what we were pre-fire with automatic takeoffs. And so it is important for us that we keep a pretty skilled guy on the takeoff side. He's usually the best guy on the shift, just has more training and understands when to take units off. So in our prep procedure is maybe a little different, but we just wipe dry and then we dip. We do not force strip our cows. And then he wipes and attaches. We give him 90 seconds from the first stall to go to where, just for kill time, let down and all that. So we have all that timed out on our parlor, which we had to figure that all out right when we started to back up. One thing we do a lot of is employee education and employee training. We have a bilingual vet within our vet practice that we use that comes in every couple months and does classes with our guys. We focus a lot in our parlor and our milking crews, and we talk about why we do things that we do, what's the reason behind it, because we just see that when our guys are understanding why we do a procedure the way we do or why we can't do something, that they have more buy-in to it, and we've just seen that their job improves. So that's one thing that we've kind of been focusing a lot on in the last couple of years. So housing, all our cows are housed for both of our dairies in free stalls, sand-bedded free stalls. Stalls get cleaned every day. We do new sand every couple weeks. And we just scrape barns with a skid steer into pits. We have most of our barns are curtain barns, and we have fans for the summer. Things sometimes in Michigan have to be closed up pretty tight at certain times of year. In the winter, it can get pretty cold. So we have doors and all that kind of stuff that we do there. Feeding on both of our dairies, we feed twice a day. We use TMR Tracker, the program. We added that, I can't even remember how many years ago, 5 or more, I think. Using that program in our feed trucks, we run 2 different feed trucks that both have it, but it helps us to see kind of precision to our feeding, how accurate we are, helps us track refusals better, and just does a better job keeping all of our ration stuff in line. So that's been something we added. So our Jersey and our Holsteins all calve at one maternity place, and then our facilities across the street from our main dairy. And then all of our fresh cows are on our main dairy. So they all are in the same pen together. And we have one set of guys that treats them all. Once our Jerseys go through their post-fresh period and they are good to go, we then truck them to the Jersey dairy, which is about 10 miles from the dairy, our main dairy. So the Jerseys then at the Jersey farm are only there it's only milking. If we have anything that comes up sick or is a need to go to the hospital pen for mastitis or anything like that, they come back home to the main dairy. This just kind of allows us to have one set of really skilled labor on one dairy, and just, the risk of having treated cows on the other dairy. We just keep everything at home. And then our maternity is the same vetted freestall, sand vetted freestalls. We have an employee that works in our maternity 24 hours a day, 2 different guys, 12-hour shifts, checking cows every hour. They're in charge of milking our fresh cows for colostrum. We do the bricks on all our colostrum, making sure that we're giving all of our calves really adequate colostrum because we keep so much of our dairy beef. So we just make sure that all our colostrum is what they need to be getting. We give a gallon of colostrum the first feeding to the Holsteins. 8 hours later, we give another 2 quarts. Jerseys, we take that down a little bit. They can't handle quite so much. So they get 3, maybe 2 if they're small, and they'll get another 2 to 1 within the next 8 hours. Then they get moved to our calf facility. And at our calf facility, they're either, if we're filling auto barns at the time, they're going on bottles to be trained. We train them for about 5 days. Once they're actively getting the nipple, we will move them to the auto barn. If our auto barns are full, which we have auto barns for 150 calves. We just started a new one the end of August that's for 100 calves, which is what you see here. It's the dairy across the street that we purchased where our maternity is. It was an old freestall barn that just wasn't going to work for us for anything with cattle and freestalls, so we gutted it and kind of retrofitted and had to add some buildings to house the auto feeders. But so we started that in August. So in this video, it's not quite full, but it's full now. So if the calves are not being trained for the auto feeder, they are bucket trained for hutches. On the auto feeder, we run kind of like a 40 fit program. If you're not familiar with that, there's a couple week period where calves can eat all they want. Which has been really neat to see, especially on the dairy beef. They can really eat. Some of these things will get up to 18 liters a day, which is quite a bit of milk. In our hutches, we feed a gallon twice a day. Our Jerseys will get 3 quarts twice a day. And then on the auto feeder, there's just a lot of information in this machine. So I can monitor our calves from my computer in the office, as well as go in there too to see what calves are eating. And so that's been something to learn, right? But the added technology, we're just able to feed these calves with way less labor than it took for another 150 calves in our hutches at our calf barn. We feed beef cross calves, like I mentioned. Our breeding strategy, we breed this bottom 60% of our Holstein herd to beef. And then our Jerseys, our heifers get bred 3 services sexed, and then our heifers go to beef semen. And then we breed a small percentage of our lactating Jersey herd to sex semen, and then everything else gets beef. And then we breed 2 services of sex to our Holsteins, and then they'll go conventional. But the increase in a lot of beef semen on our Jersey herd was we needed to keep our Jersey replacements a little tighter. We had a lot, and so we were kind of projecting to be milking way more than what we could milk. And to add value, whether that be on the Holsteins or that be in the Jerseys, but to add value to the calves that we did not need. So those Jersey bull calves, they're just hard to get rid of. There's not much value. So by changing that to a beef cross calf, there's added value in the calf that we need to get rid of. So that has been something over these last few years. And then we do keep the Holstein beef crosses, heifer and bull, and then we feed them out to finish. So we feed all of our replacements, like I mentioned before. They are on a lot of facilities that are leased, but we are in charge of care and we are in charge of feed. So we're putting up all of our heifer feed as well as our milk cow feed. So we do all the vaccinations, all that kind of stuff within our heifer herd. This picture right here that you see is our Jersey farm. So the barn to the left, we completely put up new 2 years ago, and then we added on to this existing freestall barn to get us from, our Jersey herd was 500 and about 20, and now we milk 700. So we grew that herd. This parlor, we used to milk them in a double 5, and this parlor is a double 15. So we are now able to milk the Jerseys 3 times a day. Our components on our Jersey herd are a 5'2" and a 3'9". We get about 65 pounds, but fat corrected, we're about 82. And then our Holstein herd, we run a 4 fat and a 3.3 protein. We usually average around 86, 87 pounds. Fat corrected, we're about 97. We used to send our replacements to growers. We had a couple within Michigan. We did where we sent them to Texas for a while. But it has been really neat to see the replacements coming into our dairy that have been cared for by us. And so it is a lot of work, but we just see the value in that as well.
I think it's important to treat cows more naturally as possible, not disturbing the life of the cow, since it's baby to when it's a cow. It's a lot of benefits on the auto feeders. We don't have to worry and consume too much our time to feed the calves. So basically what we have to do is just train them and just watch them. That's what we have to do with the auto feeders now. I think it is better for the calves because they eat whenever they want. So they can go and just suck it into the nipple. I mean, it's natural eating. That's what they basically do.
The Flex V2 tag specifically helps with cutting down the number of cows that have to go to ObSync. So a dairy farmer is saving money on those supplies that are used for ObSync because he's catching more cows in a natural heat and getting them pregnant off of those natural heats. And it's the ability to catch cows that might be having an off day before the naked eye could catch them when you're observing your animals in your herd. And it's just doing so by detecting cows that are off feed just a little bit and sorting those cows out and then running them through a health check protocol, whatever that may be, to get those cows treated quicker and to keep them in a milking herd for longer.
So I'll stop here for a little bit if anybody has questions on that topic that we covered. We'll have some time at the end too if anybody thinks of anything. Okay, so now jumping into the Allflex monitoring technology. So we had been looking into activity monitoring systems really looking into them for probably about 3 years before we went with the Allflex V2 tag. we had been looking at them all for quite a few years because I really wanted them, if I'm being honest. I saw the added value that they could bring to our dairy. Probably what took us so long to get them is just, how do you cash flow this? How does this make sense for your dairy, and how are we going to use this in a way that is going to bring profits to us to help pay for this new expense that we just put in our dairy? So, we took time to really think through that. But I was pretty persistent that I knew that this could do some good stuff for us. So we installed these tags in February. And, when we sat there trying to think, like, are we doing collars? Are we doing tags? I didn't really know the tag was an option, I guess, at that point. I mean, I did, but when we sat down with the Allflex and some of the CMAX guys, and they explained the V2 tag, and then there was that light in that tag that can blink, well, that sealed the deal for me. I said, that's what I want. So I think in some of these slides, you'll see some of the lights going off. So we installed the end of February. Installation went great. It was a couple days, a lot of hands on deck, but we did both our lactating farms, and we did 400 heifers. I have them in our heifer herd for breeding as well. They come out once they're checked pregnant, but they're in there to breed. And so we got them installed the end of February. And then after that, it was pretty much jump in, here we go, we're changing everything. I knew, just talking with the guys from Allflex, that one of the things that was so important was that you had to buy into the things you needed to do. And my employees needed to really take it and say, okay, I can trust this information, right? And the way that they were going to do that the best was if I led that, right? So we just stopped tail chalking cows. We started breeding off of heats off the tags. So every morning there's a list that we print off for our Holstein herd, our Jersey herd, and our heifer herd. And these are the cows we breed. We stopped tail chalking. So there's some days where they don't even need to go in all of our pens. They just know that morning, okay, maybe they only have 6 cows to breed, and here's the pens I need to go to. We stopped locking cows, all of that. So that helped, just with time in the pens and leaving cows alone. We also completely changed the way we did fresh cows. I mean, within that first week of these tags being on, pretty much. So we used to go in our fresh pen and we would check cows at day 5, day 7, day 9, looking for uterus, all this stuff, right? Temping cows. So now we print this list off in the morning. Our fresh pen now is about 200 head. And, our list might have 14 cows on it. But within that list, our guys are understanding now that we can look into each of those cows and look at their graphs and really see, okay, I don't need to check that cow today. So deciphering some information, and that even gets our list down smaller. So we could go into our fresh pen of 200 and we could be after 6 cows that morning. That's it. So the time we spend in that pen is so much less, and what we are doing in there is what we need to be doing. So it's giving precision to what we're doing and where we're focusing our time. So they're able to find the cows with bad uteruses because these tags are telling us they don't feel good. And so, and if they're bad, we'll take them out of general population of the fresh pen. We have a sick pen that they can go into, and then we focus more strategic care in that area. We every day are checking low rumination cows. So we have a list that guys print off every morning for our Holstein herd. We have one for our Jersey herd, and we have one for all our dry cows and close-up cows. So in the same thing on that, we're diving through some of our graphs on each of the cows, because you can say, okay, nope, I don't need to check her. So a list that might have 10 cows, we might take it down to 3. And those are the 3 cows we're going to go out and we're going to find them, and we're going to give health checks to those cows. It's been really neat to see, which I think is where some of our employees have just really grasped onto this, is we've seen some cows, right? They're not on the list one day. The next day they're on there and they've just tanked. Their rumination is a 20, which 20 is low. So, okay, we got to go find these cows. We got to check them. We got to figure out what's going on with them. And there was one week where we had 2 cows that were like this, and both of them had very bad quarters of mastitis. And it's interesting, and part of me said, it would be interesting to see how many more days it would take for my parlor guys to find these cows, because before, that's who had to find these cows. They'd have low milk or they'd have a hard quarter. So I didn't try that because I know that's not good for the cow. But we found these cows. We were able to start treating them. And saved them. So it's just a little interesting to me how many more days it would have taken for us to find those. We've also had some crazy things. We've found, some DAs in our dry cows that eventually they would have turned up, but at what point and to what extent would their health have been when we did find them? We've found a couple cows with twisted uteruses in our steam up lately. All of a sudden they'll tank and drop off to nothing. And we're like, what's going on? So we'll go find them. We check them. We would have found them eventually, but we found them that much quicker. So my guys that work for us have been super excited about all of this because they see what this is doing. One thing about the tag and the light, which kind of finally sold me on that tag. So we used to spend 3 hours a day, every Sunday, marking cows for preg check that next day with the vet. So that when the vet came, we could breeze through things and get done efficiently for their time and for ours. So now we don't have to mark those cows for 3 hours on a Sunday. Monday morning, the cows that need to be preg checked have a light blinking in their tag, and they just buzz down the headlocks and they can find every cow they need. And if they're loose, the vet's looking out in the group where they're loose and they're finding the ones they need to find. And so that has been, and the same thing happens on our dry cows. When it's dry off day, the cows we need to sort are out in the groups and their tags are blinking. And then every day during the week, our cows that need to get bred are blinking. So there's two different blinks. There's a fast blink and there's a slow blink. And so they can just go out and find their cows. They'll be blinking. You can have your low rumination cows be blinking. So that has been something that has just sped up some things that we're doing on a day-to-day basis by having these lights in a tag that we're already using. It helps us just identify cows that much quicker. And like I said, we're breeding off of them. Our heifers are also being bred off activity tags. So they go in about 21 days before they're old enough to breed. It's more like 30, trying to catch maybe a cycle before they go into our breed pen. And then once they're checked pregnant, we take the tag off. It's also been awesome to have an app on my phone. So, I'm out and about, maybe on different farms, and the guys will call me asking a question, what they should do with a cow. I'm able to not only, look at my Dairy Comp app for maybe some information on the cow, but there's an app that I can pull up her rumination charts or activity charts, and I can make decisions without being there right next to my guys and help them make better decisions on what they're doing to the cows as well. We've already seen some changes in some numbers that we've had. I mean, our milking cow herd from this time last year, we're up about 7% heat detection, and our heifers were up about 20. So we have seen some number changes there in our breeding program from these tags. I think we have.
The ear tag system's been a big asset to the dairy. I mean, we knew it would be. We were just trying to figure out which system we wanted to buy, and when this came along, it was a no-brainer. So, and we're seeing leaps and bounds on breeding and healthcare. Once we made the decision on this is the one we wanted, I mean, it's paying for itself, hands down.
So what Aubrey was looking for was ways to make her farm more efficient, especially from a labor perspective. So that's what really, I think, caught her eye with the V2 tags, with the flashing lights. The Flex V2 ear tags are really unique in that sense, with those flashing lights, in that there's no other products in the industry that have that to offer.
For being efficient on the dairy, I think sometimes we struggle with time. We need to get things and get quickest as possible. Now with all this technology, they help us to go faster on that daily basis.
So there's several ways in which the Flex V2 tag specifically makes dairies more efficient. It really helps with repro, as far as cutting down the number of days open dairy farmers see in their herd. You're just able to detect those cows in estrus quicker and more efficiently and more accurately than other methods of heat detection.
One thing I didn't say when we were kind of going through some of that, another aspect of why we wanted these was not only to, be able to find cows quicker, have a better way to heat detect and improve repro numbers. But the other thing, which I think most dairy farmers could agree on, is the way labor looks these days, and sometimes how hard it is to find the labor we need, and also to sometimes be able to teach how you find sick cows. Right? That's kind of a skill that is either in you or it can be taught, right? But there's an aspect of our continuing change of dairy labor that we keep seeing. And having this system is like the one constant that won't change. And I can teach my guys or whoever it is that I have working for me, where are we in 5 years with employees? I don't know. But I can teach them how we read this information. And then we have, protocols with if we sort a cow and this is what they find, well, this is what we do. So it's eliminating that piece of, are my guys going to find these cows? Can I teach people to find these cows? It's eliminating that piece of it. And also, I guess for me, it's also the peace of mind. Just knowing that we're not going to miss a sick cow because these tags are going to find her. And if my employees know that this is our job and we have to find the cows on these lists, we're not going to miss her. I'm not relying on the new guy in the parlor that I just trained 2 days ago to be able to tell that, well, that cow's got a bad quarter, or she really has no milk, she must not feel good. So it's just allowing that. And I think that peace of mind, it just makes me feel good knowing that we are not going to miss these cows. And hopefully by finding them a few days quicker, it's also going to make sure those cows stay in my herd as well. So I just wanted to add that piece too. But does anybody have questions on the tag part? So the heifer will get it before they go into the breed pen, and then we end up cutting it out while she finishes her pregnancy. And then once she comes to our close-ups, which is 21 days prior to calving, she gets a tag. And then that tag will stay with her through the rest of her lactation. And tagging cows, there's a little number on the back of here, and that just goes in into our dairy comp, and that's her number. And, there's some tag maintenance you have to do, but that's pretty minor. And yeah, if she loses a tag, you can just give her a new one and she gets assigned a new number and you don't really miss very much data on her at all. Any other questions? Yeah, there's a battery. No, so I believe the battery life in them is about 5 years on those tags. And so we just installed in February. So we're just kind of getting through we'll have tag maintenance on lost tags, if they get caught somewhere and they might rip out. And so we kind of have that. Or maybe a tag isn't reading for some reason, something is off with it. But then the way that our tag program is set up, then we can warranty those tags, and then they send me new ones. And that was another piece of why I was leaning towards the All Flex, because meeting with them and just hearing some parts of the support that they offer and that they have, to me, is pretty important, right? There's a lot of aspects on your dairy where you're making purchases and it's okay, you're going to put this in, but then what? Are you going to help me? And so it's been amazing. They do a really good job. I text multiple times a week asking questions, or I need this report changed, or, as we started with these tags and especially the light thing on the preg check, we kind of set up times of okay, this is how we think we'll go through our preg check pens. And then we just started flying that much faster. So I'm like, hey, I need these changed. Can you bump these times back? Or they'll tell me when I have a reader down. I'll get a text from somebody saying, hey, you need to go check this reader. Is it unplugged? If it's not unplugged, I'll hop on there and they get it all working. So that was pretty important to me, and knowing that I didn't have to be the sole person making sure that are all these readers reading, or is something down or not working? And I've talked with people on the repro side of this too, because as you have these tags, it kind of sets you up for some choices you can make on how you're doing some of your like OBSync, pre-sync, all that kind of stuff. This can allow you to kind of take some shots back. But then how do you make those decisions? And they have people within there that you can talk to and say, okay, how do I do this? Or am I, is this a smart thing for me to do? So the help is completely within that company, and it's been great. So, I mean, it was a little overwhelming, right? Because you're completely changing what you're doing. But I kind of feel like because when we put them in and I just said, okay, here we go, we're jumping in and everything's going to change. I almost feel like, yes, was it a lot? Yeah. But it was better to do it that way than kind of like slowly changing piece by piece. It was just, okay, let's jump into this and start to look at cows and their health off of this information that we're getting. But we also had a lady come in, I believe her name was Doris, and she is Spanish speaking lady who came in and sat down with all of my guys that worked cowside healthcare and all that kind of stuff, and sat with them and explained these graphs and explained this, like you can see in this picture here, that's actually like the dashboard for the tags. And so she kind of walked them through like understanding what am I looking at, right? And I can sit there and explain that to them too, but sometimes they're so much more receptive and just very eager to learn from somebody else. But then they have that resource too that can come in and help our guys to understand what it was. But I would say, we gave it by a good solid month after kind of rearranging how we were doing things. I feel like my guys, they had it, right? And I think as we continued and I, shared some of those stories of how we found those cows that like tanked off and, we found the dry cow DAs, we found the mastitis. I think it's those pieces that just solidified what we had been telling the guys and like looking at these charts, and the graphs and all this stuff. And we will find the cows that are sick, right? But it was having them walk through actually those cases of those sick animals to be like, okay, she's right. We'll find them, right? And so I think there's a part of it, right? You just have to work through some of those trainings and just kind of jump on. But, the support to help you understand and get your workforce there, the support is there. So you don't have to totally figure that out on your own either. Any other questions? Yeah. Mm. No. So I do feel like this tool, these tags have allowed me to not be quite so in the cattle and double checking everybody, I would say. So my guys know how to print these reports off. They know how to look through the graphs. They know in the morning, like if Aubrey's not at the dairy that morning, they're not standing there waiting for me to print all this stuff off. They're printing their list. They're going through it. Do I get the phone calls of, this is a really, for the most part, the cows are the normal situations, right? They're off feed. They have funny manure, stuff like that. I get the phone calls still for the weird things, right? Where they want to know, what should we do with this? But I like it because I can look at the same reports that they're looking at on my phone and be like, okay, so this is what they should be doing today. And at some point when I go in the office and I look at clipboards, yep, they did it. So I think it's tools like this in our auto feeders, some of these technological pieces that are allowing me to not be in everything, and helping me step back a little bit and look in a, more broader management role and to make some other decisions and stuff like that. Okay, we'll move on to the last section here, and then there is time at the end if people have some more questions. And so we kind of look at like the future of our farm, and we've already made some choices for our dairy with the tags and some auto feeders and stuff like that as to like where we're going, and we continue to look for those efficiencies that we can put in on our dairy to make what we're doing efficient and to make what we're doing better. We will continue to add more auto feeders and completely move away from hutches. We just feel like for us, that's the way that we want to go. to kind of take our labor in that area of our operation down. And also just the information that those machines give us, I think will help us raise even better calves. We are in the process of adding a new barn. We're taking down 3 older barns and putting up a very large cross vent barn that will start later this fall. One thing these tags also showed us that we already knew is that those barns we had, they're like a greenhouse type barn, but they give our cows heat stress pretty bad. So we knew that, but these tags, and within the tag program, you can look into stuff like that. And so we know by giving those girls a better home, we're going to see some increased milk production, breeding in the summer, all of that stuff. So that's something that we're going to do start this fall. We also kind of look at, for our farm, we talk about like sustainability and how we're going to be sustainable for future generations. I'm a mom of 5 kids, which I hope one of them will want to come back at least and be the 5th generation to Walnutdale. But how are we setting up our dairy so that that's possible? And also, the labor thing is real in the dairy industry, right? And I don't know what my kids will encounter, in 15 years, what will workforce look like? But if we can put in some of these tools to maybe make whatever workforce we have be better, I think that's setting up, the future of Walnutdale in a good way. But we also look at sustainability, not even just totally on the dairy side, right? We also look at sustainability with our crops and for the environment and what does that look like? We are part of Farm ES. And so that's another branch off the farm animal welfare program. So we report into Farm ES, how our manure is stored, what we do with buffer crops and our electrical use, gas use, all these things to give us a number that comes out of that module to help us see where our environmental footprint is. And so as we move forward, we can make choices as to what we're doing and to see, okay, is that going to make our footprint better? Is that what we need to be doing, for the environment? Another thing that we're part of is the MEAT program in Michigan, which is the Michigan Agriculture Environmental Assurance Program. And it's voluntary, but it's a proactive program that helps to minimize agriculture pollution risks. So we were verified in livestock and in cropping. There's 4 different aspects to that, but they kind of look through your dairy, look through how you handle your facilities, with water, with manure. They look at how you raise crops. What are you doing with fertilizer, all that kind of stuff. And then they verify you if you are doing everything correctly. And that just helps you know that, like, okay, the things you're doing, your risk of having a pollution episode or something like that is pretty low. We also have technology within our equipment, our farming equipment, our tractors and stuff like that. So it's also being really precise too in that aspect, because we do have to put up a lot of feed for a lot of animals. So how are we doing that the best we can to get the best crop we can and also to get the best yield that we can, but in a way that's still sustaining our environment and making good choices and all of that. Another aspect that's pretty important to me and to our family in our dairy is that our dairy is always open. I like to share our story with our community and to allow people to come onto our farm and to hear about what we as farmers are doing. And I hope when I share tours with people, it's not only speaking from our family and what we do on our dairy, but also speaking to the behalf of all dairy producers, and sharing with people the dedication and the care that we give to these animals. And that I hope, I'm reaching some of these people that come on our dairy for them to understand that farmers are good people and that they leave hearing my voice and not the voice from the media or the people who are against what we do, right? And so I have school groups from our local community come in and do tours. I do tours through the United Dairy Industry of Michigan. We do a lot of virtual tours. And also, like, I've had registered dietitian programs from local colleges come in. Some of them people have said, like, this is my first time on a farm. And yet there are people who are going to be in the workforce telling people what to eat. And so, I spent almost 2 hours with that group of people and just really helping them understand the work and what we put into this and how it's so important to us that we're giving everybody, good, nutritious food. And I hope that then, they take that into their professions and let people know that dairy is a good thing to eat. Another thing that we are involved in through our local church is Growing Hope Globally. So we educate our community on what it takes to care for a cow, the financial aspect of that. And they will support, they'll say, well, feed the cow for the year. So we raise money that way. And then that money goes through Growing Hope Globally to farmers in Kenya and Guatemala. And that money there is used to help teach them farming practices, which supports them and their family and also supports their communities. So it's helping develop farming, outside of our world, our country, but it's also teaching within our little bubble backed by our dairy of what farming is. So to me, it's like really cool kind of win-win thing. And we host a dairy day every summer that we bring kids. One year we had it at our farm so people could actually, people came from like the inner city to see it. And so it's just neat to be able to share that story. And so that's something I'll continue to do. And if there's any dairy farmers in the room, I encourage you to do the same. I know sometimes it can be like, what are people going to say to us or criticize us in? But even if my message to somebody sticks with one and you can change their mind, I think it's just pretty important as we continue to be up against a lot of people who thinks what we do is not great, right? So with that, we will hear from
Since I've been working here, it's a lot of progress and changes. I'm started working on the parlor, milking. So it's a lot of changes since 10 years. A lot of technology now coming into the dairy. For example, we got ear tags and auto feeders. So it's a lot of progress and a lot of technology coming in now into the farm.
As the dairy industry looks forward to the future, dairy farmers are trying to find ways to cut costs on their operations every single day. And I think that this system is a great solution to that, from a labor efficiency standpoint to keeping cows healthier and in a herd longer, and then especially maximizing the reproduction potential on a dairy farm.
So be working in this dairy, they give me a lot of opportunities to learn a lot and see all this technology coming into the dairy. They open my eyes and see, well, like, oh, it is better. Future is here, and all the technology help us a lot to take care of these animals more simple and more quicker.
anyone have any questions? So between both dairies, our heifers, our some of the cropping aspect, we have about 42. So I would say our average is probably 4 lactations. Any other questions? And it can be on any of it. It doesn't have to just be. So we're doing the barn. We will add some more auto feeders, and I'm not totally sure. Open to what other new things are out there. Maybe I'll find some while I'm here. Usually I leave here with something I want to buy. So yeah. Dairy Comp. Yes, very. Yep. They talk very well together. So there's lists within Dairy Comp that uses information off of what's coming out of the Allflex program. And so that's been great, which was a pretty important thing to me too. How do these two things jive? I don't really necessarily want to have things completely separate, right? And you got to refigure everything. So that's been very good. Those two things work very well together. There's a question in the back. So we raise all our own forages. So corn and hay. We do some cover crops in the winter. So we'll have some like triticale, stuff like that we feed heifers. And we do, we have some straw and stuff like that. So, I don't handle a ton of the cropping part of it. That's still part that my dad's in the back, that my dad still oversees. But as, he continues to step back, I imagine that's going to have to be on someone's plate. So maybe it'll be on mine, but he handles a lot of that since I handle all the employees and all of the cattle. He doesn't have to do that. So I got to leave something for him to do. So he does the crops. Yeah. Yeah. So we, obviously I'll be interested as we kind of move through this longer, because we did go through a pretty hot summer by us, which we always see milk kind of go down through the humidity of Michigan summer. But yes, so I also am going to be curious as we move through like our fresh pen, and just really dive into that data, which I have not totally kind of gotten into, but just, our fresh cows, they were locked before for probably over an hour. And now they don't even necessarily throw headlocks in those pens anymore, because they're able to go in there. Some of those cows might be laying down and they can see from that, like, what is their manure? What's their uterine discharge? How does the cow look? And then from there, if it's warranting that you need something, we, good, bad enough, or else they'll throw one panel of headlocks. But, I can look back this time last year. We're up probably a couple pounds right now than what we were prior. But even that, our breeders, they would come in and throw headlocks, and in all, we breed in 9 pens on our home dairy. They'd throw all the headlocks and have to walk through there and tail chalk all those cows. And there's some groups that it can take a few days for them to even go into to breed a cow. Because the way I structure our groups is once they're fresh, you go to a pen and you don't leave until you are dry. I don't do high groups, low groups. Everybody's kind of intermingled. So it just kind of depends on where the heats are. But there's some groups that nobody could even walk through. But if there's a sick cow, it'll be on a report. So we don't necessarily have to walk through those pens. So, yep. So I have an on-staff guy that does, some feet during the week, lame cows that pop up that really can't wait. And then I have a hoof trimmer that comes in every Friday. And then he'll also come in and added Thursday at least once a month. So he does all maintenance trims pretty much. So between the 2 dairies, we stay on top of that. I usually do one kind of middle of the road, maybe like 150 days of milk, and then they'll get a maintenance trim at before dry off. And then, as they come up, but my on-staff guy, I think is pretty important to us as feet kind of come up. He's able to get them without waiting for the trimmer. If it's 6 days later, that cow needs attention kind of then. We did just put in a new automatic foot bath, which I hope is going to bring some benefits to us as well. We were running copper sulfate foot baths, but with our rotary parlor, it took a while to fill them and dump them and very labor intensive. And we didn't run any formaldehyde just because of the issues with, employees handling that. So we have a new automatic foot bath that's doing all the fills off of timer, all this. We don't touch any chemical. We don't touch any water. It blasts itself out and cleans it. And so my employees really like it because now the guy that used to have to fill the foot bath doesn't have to fill anything. Just has to make sure he scrapes the poop away from it. But, so we're running formaldehyde in it because there's nobody's touching anything. And then they handle all the OSHA paperwork that needs to be done with that too. And so I'm excited to see we just got that started a few weeks ago. So I'll be excited to see what our hoof health does. Just cause, we have hairy warts and sometimes we struggle with them more than others. So, yeah, I'll be excited to see if that kind of keeps my guy during the week, not wrapping feet and dealing with lame cows. Any other questions? If there's not, or if you do after the fact, I'll hang out in here for a while. But I just want to thank everybody for sitting in here and listening to me. So thanks and enjoy your time at Expo.